Here in the garage, I've got a 2010 Hyundai Tucson, and this thing is still a baby. It has not even reached 100,000 miles yet. You can see we are just shy of that, 98,623. But it's here for front wheel bearings. She says that there is a noise while driving. I can't remember the details exactly because it's been a while, but I think it's like one of those situations where when you drive faster, the noise becomes more apparent, which is indicative of like a wheel bearing. But the other person that drives the car, he's the one who dropped it off, and he said he didn't really notice what sounds like a wheel bearing. At any rate, they want to go ahead and get both of the front wheel bearings done just to kind of knock it out. And of course, while I take everything apart on the suspension, like pulling out the CV shafts out of the knuckle and check anything else while I'm down there. But yeah, so I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and dig into this. I don't know if I have much to record on it. I'll just do little bits as I go along. But look at this. So I was opening this up. As you can see, I pulled my blade out here, and I was about to open it, and I figured, you know what, let me go ahead and record this so you guys can see what I get. What's mine is yours, right? Well, not really, but you get the idea. Looks like it's a t-shirt. Come on. I see a wrench right there in the corner. What's going on here? What is this? What does it say? I'm intrigued. It says, I'm a mechanic. Oh. It's got mechanic spelled different ways. At the bottom, it just says I fix cars. That's great. I love it. Thanks, man. As you can see, I pretty much got everything taken apart. You know, normally what I would do is I would leave the CV shaft inside of the wheel bearing, and I would leave the knuckle attached to the strut, and I would just make sure that the CV shaft is free from the wheel bearing, like it's not seized and it does move. Then I would just grab my slide hammer and proceed to remove the hub like that, okay? Because we know we're changing it, so what's the point of, you know, spinning things to see if it is bad? It's getting changed anyway. But for the sake of the customer knowing if there really is an issue here, instead of just throwing the parts at it, so I got everything taken apart. Of course, I'm gonna have to put it right back together again to use the slide hammer, but with the CV shaft out of it, I know that doesn't sound like much, but guys, that's a bad wheel bearing. It's just one of those wheel bearings that it's not really bad. It's like it's just not right, okay? So it's not horrible, it's not destroyed, but that little bit of whining noise that you hear when I turn that wheel bearing, that translates to a lot of noise, especially at, like, you know, you can imagine 50, 60, 70 miles per hour. This little bit of noise, that translates into a ton of noise inside the cabin while you're driving. And we still don't know the condition of the wheel bearing on the front right side. That one's also getting changed, but you know, just on the front left side here, we're already seeing an issue. So it's a good thing. Yep, I think we're making the right call on this, on putting wheel bearings on it. And for anyone who's questioning, well, didn't you just say that you don't hear wheel bearing noise while driving this car? The thing is, I don't drive people's cars really fast. This is a residential area and I stay within the speed limit. So, you know, at most over here, I'm doing like 25, 30 miles per hour. And I'm sure that's probably not enough to pick up a faint, failing wheel bearing like this one. I'm sure you would have to be on the expressway 70, 80 miles per hour to really hear something like this, which I'm not going to do. I don't speed in anyone's car because the chances of getting into an accident are very high, and I'm not taking that chance. So yeah, whenever I get in someone's car, I only go around the block once or twice, stay within the speed limit, and that's just about it. So I hope that explains why I didn't hear the noise while driving, but it doesn't mean the owner isn't experiencing the noise. All right, so I got my wheel bearing tool all set up here. So let's go ahead and start pressing this thing out. Now I did get the snap ring out of here, and this thing was a major pain in the butt to get this thing out. This is the worst thing about doing wheel bearings, is freaking snap rings. Something happened. pushed out all the guts of the bearing, so let's just go ahead and remove all of that. Okay, we're all set up again. I think we're just gonna have to give it some more salsa. So I got the big boy Milwaukee right here. Let's go ahead, transfer over the battery. And hopefully I'm not getting myself into trouble, because usually when you gotta pull out this thing, sometimes it just creates problems. There we have it, guys. Yeah, this wheel bearing was in there pretty damn good. So I got the new wheel bearing in place and everything is ready to pretty much get pressed in. Now it's very vital that you press on the outer race. So you want to be pressing on this race with this backing plate right here. You want to make sure there's no pressure at all on the inner parts of this bearing. All the pressure has to be applied to the outer race. I hope that makes sense. So let's go ahead and press this in, and I'm going to switch back over to the small gun, because you don't want to do something like this with this gun, because if there's a problem, this gun will try to just power right through it, whereas this one may stop and give you some sort of a hint that something's wrong. Okay, so the wheel bearing completely bottomed out. So all of that turned out well. Everything looks really good. No force was being applied to the inner race. The only time you want to touch that inner race is when you're supporting it, when it's time to press in the hub. That's about it. Everything looks really good here. Let me do a little bit more cleaning, and we'll put the snap ring on right now so we don't forget about it. So it took me a good 20 minutes to get that snap ring out, maybe even 30 minutes to get it out. And that's because this design uses like those tiny little tabs on the bottom, and there is barely just enough clearance to get a very fine like a flathead screwdriver inside of this tab right here. Hope you guys can see that. So that's what makes it difficult to get out. I have a large snap ring plier set, which is this one right here. And guys, I know it looks funny. You're like, whoa, those things are huge, because this is a standard size of snap ring pliers, okay? And let's set that next to the new one. So it's almost like a joke, right? Like that thing is way too big. But guys, when these things work, they work. Right now with the snap ring off of the car, I was able to get the large pliers inside of there because I had the clearance. So this thing can generate a ton of force. So I was able to completely compress that snap ring with no issues at all. And all I did was I laid it down in its bore. All of the edges all the way around pretty much fell into place. And when I disengaged the pliers, I just pulled them out, and then with a small screwdriver just tapped on this end and tapped on this end, and they both fell into place. So yeah, it took me like almost 20-30 minutes to get the snap ring out, but it took like I don't know, 15 seconds to get it back in. And that's all thanks to having the correct tools for the job. That's all it really comes down to, guys. Sure, you could do this, it just takes longer, but the correct tool for the job, walk in the park. So I got the old race off of the hub. I used my Dremel to cut a slice in it and then hit it a few times with a chisel and a hammer. And if you look inside of there, you can see where it cracked, and it relieved all the pressure that it had. Of course, this piece just popped right off. But once you relieve all the tension that it has, this thing just kind of slides right off, as you can see. We are pretty much ready to go here. Now I am supporting the inner race as I press in the hub. And I always spray a little bit of lube on the pieces that are getting pressed together just so they don't go on dry. I don't know if it makes a difference. So with everything put back together, I'm gonna let you guys try to listen to a new wheel bearing. You're not gonna hear anything because new wheel bearings, they have so much like resistance that they don't even spin. You can see it stops spinning the second you let go of it. So it feels nice and smooth in my hand. I don't feel any rough spots as I'm spinning it. It feels just how it should. So it's definitely an improvement over the wheel bearing that came out. And at this point, guys, I'm just gonna go ahead and put everything back together. And once I get the other side taken apart, we'll take a listen at the front right side. I'm not gonna show you guys anything. I just want to show you what the front right side sounds like if that wheel bearing was pretty much in the same boat as this one. So I got the front and left side all put back together, and now I'm on the front right side. Got everything taken apart and spinning the bearing. I would say that this side sounds better than the front left side did. And of course, with the new wheel bearing in place, there is no noise at all. Nice and smooth. So that's it. Let's go ahead, put everything back together. We'll take it out for a test drive. Now, removing these snap rings would be a lot easier if I had the correct tool, and I kind of do have the correct tool. So I was using this one I was trying, but I have this one right here, which is basically a much larger version of this same tool. The problem is I was abusing this one a while back, and I ended up breaking the tips off of it. So you can see if we match it up right to this other set right here, you can see how it should have two little tips right on the end, and I end up snapping them off. Now this is a set from Harbor Freight. It's their Icon kit, and don't get me wrong, these are some really good pliers. I actually really like them for the money. They are really good pliers. I could have returned the whole set, at least I think I could, but honestly I modified these and they've been super useful. In fact, I was able to install the snap ring on the front right side just as fast as I was able to do the front left side with those large snap ring pliers that I just showed you guys. And the reason for that is because even though the tips of this one broke off, you can see I ground down the inside edge on both of them. So what this does is it pretty much locks in place and doesn't allow the snap ring to pop out. Like these right here, these are for different, they're for external snap rings. They're not for this one. So you can see when you squeeze the handle, they open up, as opposed to these, they are naturally open and you squeeze the handle to close them. I hope that makes sense. But anyway, let's just use these as an example with the tiny little tips that come on it when you buy them. Now, I would not attempt to compress this snap ring right here and just hold it out like this, because we all know that snap ring's gonna go flying, right? But the modification that I did to these snap rings, let me show you how well it holds. Okay, so both of those edges are locked in. I hope you can see that. But guys, look, one hand, I'm gonna completely go ahead and compress this spring. There we go. That spring is touching 100% compressed. And guys, I would not normally attempt this, but it's not going anywhere. And it's because of those two grooves that I cut on the inside edge of these pliers. So that's the reason why I haven't bothered to return them or exchange them at Harbor Freight, because I modified them and they have become super useful to me. Like I said, I was able to put the snap ring on the front right side super fast. Took like 10-15 seconds. That thing popped right in with these. So unfortunately, I don't think I could go to Harbor Freight and buy just this one plier. I got to look into it, but I don't think I can. I think they only sell it as a complete set, which I don't think I need to do. If I really need, I don't know what size is this, maybe like a, I don't know, a 7-inch plier, 7, 8-inch, 6-inch. I have no idea, guys. Oh, I was way off. This is a 9-inch plier. If I'm just looking to replace one plier and it needs to be stout and it needs to be heavy duty, I would probably just pay the money and buy a snap-on one. Honestly, one snap-on plier is probably going to cost me as much as a whole Icon set from Harbor Freight, because if I remember correctly, that set was about $50 or $60. So that's probably what I would pay for one of these from Snap-on. but since it's like the most common one I use, it's why, you know, I was abusing it. I would probably invest the money in a Snap-on 9-inch plier instead of going to Harbor Freight and buying another complete set just to get one plier out of it. I hope that makes sense. It's me from the future. So I said I was going to go on Snap-on's website, and I did. I didn't really like what Snap-on was offering because they have their, like, the hinge on their pliers that you can switch from internal to external, and I really don't like that type of stuff. I like pliers that are dedicated to what they're doing. Lately I've been buying a lot of Knipex tools, as you can see, and I absolutely love them. They are fantastic tools. Buy once, cry once. Whenever it comes down to pliers, I am going straight to Knipex from now on. Yes, they're kind of expensive, but the quality of these things is absolutely amazing. This thing just feels like nothing else I have here in my toolbox. This right here, like I was saying previously, it's a great tool from Harbor Freight for the money. But once you got this in your hand and then you grab a Knipex tool, guys, it just makes that feel like cheap Chinese garbage. Honestly, I'm not even exaggerating. This just feels like such a quality tool. It stacks up right on top of this one. It is exactly a 9-inch, just like the old one I'm trying to replace. Test driving this Hyundai, and it drives good. I don't hear anything weird. It sounds perfectly normal. But then again, I also thought it sounded normal before the wheel bearings. The real test here is once the owner starts driving it and she has, you know, a good few days invested in driving this thing, and she'll be able to tell if whatever noise she was hearing, if it's gone or not. To me, it sounds fine. It sounds normal. So right here I'm doing about 30, and I'm not hearing any indication of a wheel bearing noise or anything that sounds anything like it. So I'm gonna go ahead and park this car. This one's all set, and the owner can come pick it up. Hold on, what am I doing? No special privileges. So let me go ahead and park this turd and they can come pick it up. We're back with this Grand Cherokee, the one that the wheel went flying off, and we had to change the wheel bearing on this thing. So it's back for a different issue. She's saying that the transmission feels like it's slipping, like it's not grabbing. It just feels like transmission issues. And she noticed that it looks like it's dumping transmission fluid out. And she said whenever she adds fluid in to like top it off again, she said the car drives normal. But it's after it sits and like a puddle develops underneath the car, she gets in the car, try to move it, and it barely wants to move until you fill up the trans fluid again. So I'm going to see if we can find this leak. The car's only been sitting here for like 5 minutes. I put this white packaging underneath it, and I could see something right there that does look weird. It kind of looks pinkish. It might be engine oil, who knows. But so I'm just gonna spend some time right now to try to figure out where this leak is at. Okay, so I got the car lifted up a little bit. You can see I got my jack stand and floor jack underneath the truck. And what I've noticed is this trans fluid leak looks like it's on the rear. It's on the front right side, so over here. Okay, and what's on this side? The trans fluid cooler lines, you could see them right there. And if you go underneath the truck, you could actually see them from down here. It's those two lines right there. And what's funny is if you look at the lower line, I could actually see what looks like fresh fluid dripping off of it. The top one, not so much. And that line snakes under and it goes across right there, continues back here, and on its way to the transmission. So let's go back up top, and I want to show you guys something that I noticed. The two lines I was pointing at from down there, from right here, it looks fine, but to me that lower line looks like it's really close to that rail, if not touching. So when you're looking for leaks like this, you want to look for points of contact, and I'm suspecting that's what we're gonna find right there. Guys, I got the engine running, and let me show you this. So I'm trying to keep my hands away from the belt. Obviously the fan, I don't got to worry about it because this one has an electric fan, so it's not constantly spinning. But let's keep an eye on the line I was talking about. I'm gonna go ahead and move the line right now. Look at that. That's crazy. The only thing keeping that fluid in is the line touching the rail. But you can imagine while the car is driving, going down the road, and this line moves around, that fluid is just being dumped out of there. All right, so we are done here. It needs a new line for the transmission cooler. I don't know if they're sold in sets. We'll find out, but that's what this car needs, and we'll go ahead and get this fixed. Looks like we're gonna end up fixing this Jeep today. The owner went to the store and dropped off the parts for me, so I got 2 quarts of trans fluid as well as the line. It is sold as a set like this. You can't just buy one line. And it's made by Dorman. I looked online, I looked at websites and like auto parts stores, and they all sell the same part. So that's going to be the part number for this specific part right here. So let's start digging into it and get this thing fixed, this turd. So the grill on this thing was barely held on because of the accident. You know, just a few clips right here on top and the whole thing just comes right off. So I got the 2 lines disconnected. I put a plug on the lower port because it was dropping trans fluid out. We got a good amount of movement out of this now. You can see. I think we should jack up the car, get some jack stands under it, and go underneath it and try to disconnect those lines. So underneath the truck, what I want to do now is try to disconnect these 2 lines right here. Hopefully they come off without any issues. But if I have to, I'll just go ahead and cut the line, and we could put a regular socket on it so we have less chance of rounding it off. So what I want to try to do is hold the main box right here with these pliers, and then use a crowfoot adapter on my ratchet, see if we can break it free. Oh, she's on here tight. It's really important to hold the block. You don't want to go twisting that and cause more damage to the lines coming out of the back of it. So holy crap. Try again. Pull out my tampon. Oh, there it goes. It broke free. Oh, wow. And there we have it, guys. Got the 2 lines disconnected. Did not have to cut anything. So it went pretty smooth. Just had to put in a little bit of elbow grease because they were under pretty tight. I would imagine these are the factory lines. It's never been removed since 2005. So the line seems to be pretty loose at this moment. As you can see, I got the line off of the car. Now, I did have to remove the fan and the fan shroud. It's all one piece. So I tried to leave the fan shroud in place and just try to work around it. Guys, it wasn't happening. I spent a good 15 minutes trying to get the line out with the fan shroud in the way. It just wasn't happening. So that's when I came to the conclusion that this thing has to come out. Once I removed that fan shroud, that line came out within like 30 seconds. So it just goes to show how much in the way this fan shroud is. And yeah, just get that thing out of the way. And once you get both ends, the connections disconnected, this thing just falls right off the car. So super nice. Let's get the new piece. We'll do a little bit of cleaning of where the connections are gonna go, make sure everything's nice and clean, and pop in the new line. Let's have a look at this. There it is. Tiny little pinhole from rubbing through. That's absolutely crazy. Now in a pinch, sure, you could fix this yourself. If you didn't want to replace the whole line and it's your car, you could just cut this end, and try to make some sort of a flare on each end and just put a rubber hose. Problem solved, right? And I know someone would leave that comment, but the thing is, I'm here to fix cars, okay? If I'm gonna fix it, we're gonna fix it the right way. I don't need someone coming back and then I have to do the job all over again for free. So no, fix it right the first time and this thing will be all set. So here we have the new part right next to the old one, and everything seems to be matching up. I swear, this is like the only time Dorman are good products. When they help you like this and you can't get parts that no one else is making, and Dorman to the rescue, right? That's about it. Don't that's all you could say for Dorman. Who knows? Dorman probably doesn't even make these. They probably just put their name on them. Who knows? I have no idea. But everything's looking like it's matching up. Let's go ahead and get these lines on. I'm gonna put caps on each end right there and right here on all of this to protect those ends as I'm trying to get everything in place so we don't get any contamination. And one more thing, the new part already has a retainer clip right there to separate the two lines. As you can see, the old one did as well, but there's one that goes right here that didn't come on the new line, so I did have to transfer that over. As well as this, I could see there's nothing here to hold this line in place and to prevent the new line from actually doing the same thing that the old one did. So I just grabbed a piece of rubber hose, I put it over this corner right here and with some zip ties, and it's going to give this corner a little bit more protection. But once it's on the car, we'll try to fine tune things and see if we could prevent this line from even touching that rail. I don't know if it's possible, but something like this is not a bad idea. So as far as from up here, I got the line roughly in place. As you can see, these are just gonna fall right into place right where they belong. We're gonna leave this loose for right now. The first thing is to go underneath the truck and connect those threaded fittings. That's number one. So I got this side threaded in first, and as you can see, everything fit perfectly. You can see I got this side connected already. Everything went pretty good. Everything looks good, so I'm happy with that. But if we go back underneath the truck, I'm going to show you guys something that I found. This is what I noticed, is that this plastic tie down, now I have to move it. It's supposed to be a little bit off to the side over here. But this is supposed to clip into that metal tab right there. And as you can see, there's a piece of plastic broken off inside of there. So I'm going to go ahead and knock that plastic piece out. But it doesn't matter. This thing is no longer going to retain these lines because it's just broken. So if we were to go ahead and push this up here where it belongs, just like that, it's no longer making contact on the frame over there, as you can see. So look how far it hangs down. So basically, all of this damage and this whole repair came down to this plastic tie down that failed. So I went ahead and popped out that little piece of plastic, and surprisingly, this thing still had enough of its I don't know what to call it, little squishy things, you know, like the Christmas tree things, to push inside of that hole and retain itself. You can see if I go ahead and wiggle this, it's not falling down. And over here I have about a finger's gap. It's no longer resting on the frame. That's how it should be. But guys, I don't have much faith in this. I feel like once you start driving this car around, this thing is eventually gonna fall off. So I think I'm just gonna do whatever I can. And there we have it. I just used some zip ties and I made like a X pattern. X gon' give it to you. That's my DMX. Don't hate. Anyway, you can see the zip tied. We got it coming from this angle, and it's going across that boss where the plastic retainer is supposed to clip into. This is not going anywhere, guys. Look at this. I'm trying to move it and it is rock solid. So look over here, look at that gap. Have you ever seen a prettier gap than that? And coming from up top here, you can see how that thing is miles away from the frame, almost making my little piece of rubber that I put on there useless and pointless. It doesn't matter though, it's all right, it'll be fine. Actually, it wasn't a waste of time if you think about it, because those zip ties that I put down there, if they end up failing in the future, who knows, a year or two from now, and that line falls right back onto that rail, at least it's gonna have a buffer to protect the line. So it's not a complete waste. Everything's looking really good here. The fittings down there are completely torqued down. They're nice and tight. Like I showed you guys earlier, this is all put back together. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the cooling fan back on the car and just wrap this whole job up. So I got the truck running, everything is put back together. As you can see, I'm topping off the cooling system because I did have to disconnect this hose right here. And I added some trans fluid, not a lot, just a little bit since we lost a ton of it. And then I'll, you know, warm everything up and get it topped off. But in the meantime, we got to check for leaks. So I went ahead and sprayed this down and used a rag just to kind of clean it up lightly. And with the car running, keeping a close eye on it, you can see we have no drips at all, no leaks. And checking up here as well, as you can see, no drips. Guys, this thing is pretty much all set. I'm gonna go ahead and finish bleeding out the cooling system and keep an eye on the trans fluid and top it off right where it's supposed to be. And that'll be it for this one. I'm trying to wrap this up real fast because it's I don't know, it's getting to be about 7 p.m. and I turned off my heater already. I got the garage door open, as you can see, because the truck is running. So it's starting to get cold in here really fast, so I'm trying to wrap this up. So I was able to let this car sit overnight, and before I went in the house, the coolant was up to like right here, and I was inside the car was running, we were getting plenty of heat out of the dash, and the system seems like it's bled, right? It's not going to take in any more coolant. But look at this, overnight the coolant went from here to completely gone. It just took all of it in. And this is why, I know it's not always necessary, but this is why I like to, whenever I'm bleeding a system, if I can, let the car sit for at least an hour or so, and you'll find that it will take in more coolant. I'm gonna go ahead and top this off, put the cap on it, check the trans fluid once again, make sure it's topped off, and that'll be it for this one. Take it out, and yesterday I checked everything. There are no leaks at all as far as the repair that I did.